I'm Stephanie, and today we're doing a foundation face-off. On one half of my face, I will be applying the original formulation of Estee Lauder's Double Wear Foundation, which has been my favorite #1 foundation for years. And on the other half of my face, I will be applying the new reformulated version of the same foundation so that I can see how they apply, how they feel, how they look, and how they wear. So whether you're here for the whole shebang or you like to use the timestamps to skip to the most important parts, that's what we're doing today. The only things I have on my face right now are my skincare and sunscreen, which have already soaked in, so that should be fine. And I'm not going to wear a primer today. I do find that this is a foundation I don't necessarily have to wear a primer with, and so we're going to see if that still holds true today. And what I'm going to do is apply the foundation to this palette and then use a beauty blender to pat it in. And I'll just use one side of the beauty blender on one half of my face and then the other half on the other, and that way the application situation will be the same for both sides. The color is probably going to look pretty off simply because I am using just my winter foundations now. And normally what I would do is I would mix this with a liquid bronzer. I currently use the Makeup by Mario Soft Sculpt Bronzing and Shaping Serum in the shade Light. And I've just found that it's just more efficient to buy my winter shade of a foundation that I like and then use that as an adjuster. And that way I'm not, overloading on foundations because I tend to go through them pretty slowly. By the way, I'm putting the original on this half of my face right now. And what happened was the second I heard it was being reformulated, I jumped online and tried to buy a bottle of the original because I was just like, that's my go-to foundation for anything important. I want to get one last bottle of it. But it turns out I was already too late, and the bottle that I ended up getting was this one. And you can tell that I haven't been wearing makeup all that much lately, just because normally this is the sort of thing I would have tried right away, but I just haven't had a lot of energy to film lately, and I wanted to try it on camera because, I don't know, I thought it would be fun. So one pump did kind of soak in kind of nicely. Okay, so even if this is a little bit pale now, I'll just bronze it up later. Now comes the moment of truth where I get to open the brand new bottle. And it's not gonna have a pump, is it? I'm just gonna have to pour it out. I can't believe a foundation that this expensive doesn't come with a pump. That's really, I don't know. That's really makes me not happy. But anyway, okay. So now I have the new formulation, which I have to say on the palette looks pretty much the same as the old one. So that's hopeful, but how is it going to go on? I haven't watched any reviews of this at all because I've just kind of wanted to have my own impression of it. What I can say is that the color seems to be a little bit lighter, at least initially. Maybe it'll oxidize as it goes on. As you can see, it's a little bit light for me right now, but we'll bronze it up. I think the center of my face is probably going to get a double whammy of foundation, but that's okay. We'll focus more on the sides when we do the comparison. My first impression of it going on is that, I'm going to take a closer look in another mirror in a minute, is that it feels fine, but it almost looks like dewier to me. I'm not sure if it actually is. But at least as it first goes on, it's definitely lighter than the original. So we'll see what the dry down looks like in a couple of minutes. I really want to make sure I pat it into my nose here. My nose is like the test of a foundation. If a foundation will stay on my nose, then it's probably really great. As long as it looks good. It has to stay and it has to look good, which is not always a given when it comes to foundation. So now I'm going to take my hand mirror and we're going to take a closer look. Right now, finish-wise, it's a little bit dewier. It's not quite as matte, but it's not a hugely significant difference. I do feel like my pores look a little bit better on this side, but I'm not sure if that's because this side is a little bit darker and this side is a little bit lighter. We'll have to see in a few minutes. So that's what we'll do. I will come back to you in a few minutes and then we'll compare the colors.
A few moments later.
I've waited a few minutes. I did a couple of things and then I decided to moisturize my lips a little bit. Today I used the Remedy for Dry Lips lip balm, which is a nice lip balm. It's very comfortable. It feels kind of like just Vaseline, but apparently it has ceramides and squalene and peptides in addition to petrolatum, so it's not just Vaseline. I guess it's more moisturizing. It's comfortable no matter what, and it just feels like the sort of thing, like it would probably be nice in winter, like if I knew I was going to be going out on a really cold, windy day and my lips were going to get a little bit raw. I feel like this might be like really protective, but I'm not sure how like purely nourishing it is. My Lanolips is like my favorite, and I feel like this is like as occlusive as that. So this might be something that goes in my winter jacket and stays in my pocket. I think that might actually be the perfect place for this. But it is now summer, and now I want to see if the color has changed. And I do feel like it's darkening a bit. It's definitely drying down to a darker color, but I feel like the original is a little bit darker. And I don't know if that's just because it's older, because it's several years old at this point. It takes me forever to go through a bottle of foundation, so I'm not sure. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to put some concealer on first. And I thought we would do another test because once I found out I had the new bottle of Estee Lauder Double Wear, I thought I would try the concealer that so many people were raving about, also from Estee Lauder. It's the Double Wear Stay in Place Concealer. And I thought I would get this for my channel for testing to see if I like it as much as everybody else does. So on this side of my face where I have the original, I'm also going to be using my normal concealer. So the one that I use is the Sisley 1.5. Yeah, this looks like really light. I'm wondering if I'm gonna look like a ghost when I put that on, but we'll see. I also bought it in the depths of winter when I was super pale. It's been that long that I've been wanting to try these things, but I was waiting to do it with you. Okay, so here we have my Sisley. And normally I would also put like a little bit of color corrector on just because my circles are somewhat dark, but I want to see how just the concealers perform today. I'm going to be testing it in all sorts of constellations in the future, so it'll get a lot of use, it'll get a lot of testing, but today I just want to test the concealers on their own. So I used the brush that came with this today, but I'm just going to use a very similar brush to apply it on the other side. One of my favorite concealer brushes of all time is the ESUM W19 brush. It's actually, I think, a lip brush, but I really like using it as a concealer brush. So I'm just going to put some of the concealer onto my palette here because it's been disinfected, and that way if I really hate it, then it's easy for me to give this away because I haven't used it on my skin. All right, and now I'm just going to use this on this eye and we will see. Yeah, it's a little bit light, I think, but we'll see if I can pull it off. This seems to be going on initially pretty easily. It's spreading really easily. How does it press into the skin? Yeah, it's definitely too bright for me this time of year. So this isn't necessarily my ideal shade. It's weird. It's feeling like a little bit sticky as I press on it now. So I wonder if that's going to stay that way or if it's going to dry down to not be sticky anymore. I'll just take some down the side of my nose maybe so it doesn't look quite so stark there under the eye. One thing I can say is that it is very lightweight, and at least right now it is more mattifying than the Sisley. And so it's not quite hydrating looking. So if you're looking for hydration, I think this one is probably going to be like if you want a hydrated looking under eye, like a dewier look, I think the Sisley would be more in that direction. Although I find it's really natural. I don't find that it's particularly dewy. I, having hollows under my eyes, actually like a more matte look. I just don't want it to look dry. And that's why I like the Sisley, because it's not super shiny. It's like a very natural finish. But this one's more mattified, and I kind of like that for me, just because it reduces the difference between my cheek and my under eye a little bit more. So first impressions so far are that it's nice, and I feel like it is getting less sticky. Now I guess we will put on some bronzer. I think that's the first thing we need to do so that I feel a little bit more myself. It's always hard for me to tell how it's going to look on camera. Like I might go to edit this and be like, that's not too light. In real life, this side of my face is definitely looking paler. So the new formulation does seem to have like a difference in color, at least in the shade Ecru, which is the one that I have. So let me find a brush to put some of this bronzer on. And this is just the Makeup by Mario bronzer. I'm definitely going to start on this side of my face, which is just, in real life at least, looking quite a bit paler than it should. And I think I'm even going to take this under my eye today. Not something I normally do, but I do think that that's helping a little bit. And I realize it's not really a strict test of how these products are going to wear because they're not on my face alone. But the reality is I'm always wearing makeup with other things. Like I'm never just wearing foundation, because on a day where I'm going to actually wear foundation to even out my skin tone, then I also want to bring a little bit of dimension back into my face with things like bronzer and blush. And so that's why I want to do this test using the products that I typically use. Yeah, but I feel like I don't need as much bronzer on this side of my face. I got bit by a vampire. It was a mosquito. I have so many bug bites here. I've got one. I'm itchy everywhere. I've been outside a lot just because it's so hot in this apartment. But there's just bugs everywhere, which, doesn't necessarily bother me. I kind of like bugs. I think they're really interesting, but I don't like it when they bite me. I don't like the bitey bugs. But I was at the lake the other day with family, and we were just sitting around talking and eating a picnic, and libelle, what's the word in English? A dragonfly landed on my nose, and it just sat there. Like, we just kept talking, and the little dragonfly was just sitting there. And I figure, maybe I should go buy a lottery ticket. Maybe it's my lucky day because I was blessed by the dragonfly. But I didn't. Okay, so now I'm feeling more like the right skin color, I think. And what I would normally do is mix the two of these together. And I think that that'll be fine. Like, I'm not really worried. I think that this will be fine in the winter. I think it's just in the summer where I'm having an issue. Now, for blush, I think I want to take a color from here. I really like the DANESSA MYRICKS, the putty formula. When I use a little bit of Fix Plus to wet it, I just feel like it makes a really nice, smooth blush. And I want to go, I think we might go with Lovesick today. It's like kind of between Lovesick and Acorn. I don't know. I think Acorn might actually look really good with the shirt I'm wearing now. So maybe we'll do that. Okay. We'll go with Acorn, or was it not Acorn? Adorn. Adorn. This is what happens when I don't wear my reading glasses. I'm getting old. Okay. I was thinking to myself, that's a strange name for a blush. Like, that's this pink, Acorn. And now I'm just going to take this BK Beauty 109 brush. Yeah, I think this is a really nice blush for this shirt that I'm wearing. But I just like the way these go on. When I just use a little bit of Fix Plus, it's just really nice. Natural enough. And I like that you can take the pans out, because then when I spray them, I don't feel like I'm getting like setting spray all over all of the pans. I'm just getting it on the pan that I want it on. I like that. DANESSA MYRICKS was thinking when she came up with those packaging concepts. I want some eyeshadow. I'm going really simple today. This is Chanel's Undertone, which I believe has been discontinued, but I'm continuing to use it because I really like it. And I think this was probably the last batch that they made, because the last time I checked the lot number, it was fine. Just gonna put some of this on here. And it's funny because in the winter, this darkens my eyelids just a little bit, but now that it's summer and I have a little bit of color, I feel like it's the same color as my skin now. Or even lightens it a little bit, although I think that's the finish of it, because it's got just a tiny bit of sheen, which is really nice. And I think this is going to be the only eyeshadow that I wear today, because it is so hot. And I think, like, I definitely need to get some exercise today, so I think I'm going to go for a swim, which will be very interesting to test this makeup. We can check it out after my swim and see if any of it's still intact. But that will be later today, so I can definitely check in before that. I was really shocked when I found out that they were going to be reformulating this foundation. It always like bugs me when I'm like, okay, a brand has a bestseller and then they discontinue it to replace it with something else. It's like, why would you take your best-selling product and do that? But I have a feeling there's like a lot of forces at work that we're also not aware of. I mean, for example, sourcing. Maybe there's certain ingredients that can't be sourced the same way anymore. So many things are changing. It's so hard to get things now. I'm in Europe right now, and sometimes companies want to send me PR, but they find out I'm in Europe and they're like, no, never mind. So it's just kind of, it's weird. Like, the world is smaller than ever because of the internet, but now with tariffs and trade things and whatnot, it's just getting harder for people to get things in certain parts of the world. So maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. Or maybe it was just market research, because, you know, the Double Wear foundation was so matte on its own. And I think a lot of people who weren't particularly into makeup, like, there's a lot of people who wear makeup, but they're not like interested in it, and they're not really into learning a lot of techniques. I think they might be intimidated by a full coverage matte foundation like Double Wear, but I just thought the original formulation was just the best because it was so matte on its own. But depending on what I applied it with and what I was using it with, and, you know, if I used a beauty blender, if I used a sponge, it was so flexible. That's what I loved about the original formula so much. I could make it do anything I wanted. It could give me any level of coverage that I wanted, and it was awesome. And I'm wondering if this one's going to be as flexible, because my first impressions of it are, let's see, in the center of my face, I think it might even be a little bit more matte than the original, which is shocking me, but it's looking, I'm trying to see my pores. Let's see, I have to get my glasses. I have not set it or anything, so it's still in its native form. Yeah, I feel like I like the way my pores look better on this side of my face, but I honestly think that has to do with the color. I think this color is just a little bit too light, and so it's just kind of emphasizing things, but I think that honestly my pores look good on both sides. So far, when it comes to the concealer, I'm actually really impressed with this so far. I mean, I'll have to see how it wears, because, you know, that's most of the game there, but I do feel like it's really nice. It's more matte than my Sisley, and it's lighter than Sisley, so maybe that'll be good. I don't know. It'd be better, I think, if the Sisley was the lighter one, because the Sisley would probably be better for me in the winter. So I think I might need, like, maybe shade 2N instead of 1N. But I actually think this is nice. So what I'm going to do is we can put on the rest of my makeup, hang out together. But if you want to skip on over to the wear test segments, you can do that. But for now, we're going to hang out a little bit more, and I am going to put on some eyeliners. You can watch me poke myself in the eye while we chat. Can you tell that I'm totally scatterbrained lately? So this is Urban Decay's 24/7 Glide On Eye Pencil in the shade Stash. And because I'm probably going swimming today, I figured this would be a good one to wear. I just want to define my eyes a little bit, but I don't need any wing or anything today, I think. I just want a little bit of depth in here. And I just thought this would be a nice, easy, neutral-ish color to wear. But what I like is that the finish of it has this kind of like satiny, silky thing going. You know, depending on the color that you get, some of them are very matte, but some of them have like just a little bit of sparkle to them, like this one. And I like that it's like almost like a little bit of a wet effect. It's a dewy look for the eyelash line, and I'm not sure how many people like that, but I'm actually a huge fan of that. I feel like it peeks through the lashes, makes my eyes look a little bit bigger, and it also softens the color a little bit, which for someone with muted coloring like me, I think is really helpful. So now we've got that liner done, and we're gonna go in with mascara. I'm sure if I had darker hair, I would really appreciate black, but as someone with lighter hair and lighter skin and muted coloring, brown is my jam. Unless, of course, I'm going for a very dramatic look, then I would reach for black. But I've just been really enjoying this mascara, and I think I really like the wand, too. Like, I feel like I can do different things with it, depending on which side I use. I like how it's curved, like a little banana. And today's lip color is going to be Sally Soft Honey from Gucci, because I think with as dewy as I'm looking surprisingly dewy for someone wearing double wear, but I mean, I think it also has to do with the bronzer and the blush and the application methods, but I think this finish, this more glossy finish, will kind of complement what's on my face. Okay, that's probably a little lighter than, I'm so used to being pale. It's a little bit lighter than I thought it was going to be, but it's still, do I want to go darker? I think I want to go darker. We're going to stick with Gucci, but instead of Sally Soft Honey, we're going to go with Goldy Red in, what is it, the satin formula? What is this called? It's the glowy formula, but it's not the glossy formula. And I'm just going to kind of pat this in a little bit. I don't want to look like super red. I just want to put a touch of color on there. Yeah, I think that's more the look I wanted. I really like this red because it doesn't have to be intense. It can be almost like a red pink if I just put it on like this. Yeah, I think that's the look I wanted. So now that all the makeup's on, I'm going to take one final look at both sides of my face. And I have to say, other than the color, I don't really notice much of a difference. I actually think they're looking pretty similar. I decided not to powder my face. Like normally I would powder under my eyes because like here, I feel like the hollow of my cheek is emphasized just a little bit by the glowiness of the Sisley. And normally this time of year I would use my Huda Beauty powder, but I kind of want to see how these wear without powder. So I'm not going to put any powder on. I'm just gonna wear my makeup like this and we'll do a couple of check-ins and see what happens. It's been about an hour and a half. I'm sitting here in natural light, and this is the original, this is the new formulation. And finish-wise, I'm not really seeing a difference. Pore-wise, I'm not seeing a difference. I feel like it's sitting equally on all of my pores on both halves of my face. I do still notice though that the color is different. So if you used to wear the old double wear and you're going to buy the new one, I would definitely just check the color first to make sure that you get the right one. Because I think I would, like, I was kind of borderline anyway. I was borderline too dark for Ecru. So I think I might go to, what is it? I think it's like desert sand or desert beige or something is the next one down. I think that's probably what I should have picked, but I just assumed that the colors would be the same. But it's also not just in my head, because I asked my partner what he thought of it, and he's like not really a makeup person, doesn't really care at all about makeup, but he's got a good sense of like color and lighting, because he's kind of into photography. And so when he was looking at my face, he's like, well, one side is definitely lighter than the other, but it's not so much so that, you know, it's stark. He's like, you know, it could just be, you know, some people might think it's just, you know, that there's more light on one side of your face. So it's not like the difference is like really dramatic, but someone who pays attention to things like light and color and shading would see the difference. And if you like makeup as much as I do, you would definitely see it too. So wear test number 1, an hour and a half into it, is going well. Let's cross our fingers that it stays this way and that my favorite foundation remains my favorite. I'll be back in a couple hours. It's now been about 4 hours. I'm on my lunch break and I'm going to be going in the water soon, so I wanted to check in. This is the side with the original, this is the new formulation, and it's really hard for me to see in this light, so I'm just gonna let you take a look. And maybe if I look at the footage, I'll insert editing, Stephanie, but I think you'll be able to see for yourself if there's a difference other than the color. We're now on day 2 of my Estee Lauder test with the original on this side and the new one on this side. And I used all of the same makeup that I did in the original video, except for the lipstick. And even though I used a different color blush, it was still from the DANESSA MYRICKS palette. So once again, we're gonna do a wear test. I've been wearing it for 2 hours already, and I have to say, when I look in the mirror, the one difference I'm noticing is the color. It's time for the final check-in. It has been 10 hours of wearing the original here and the newly formulated double wear here. And I have to say, other than the color, I don't really notice that big of a difference. I think what will be interesting is when I start using it the way I really do use it, for example, in the summer, mixing it directly with the bronzer. Like, for example, I have bronzer almost all over my face today so that I don't look like a ghost. But I'm wondering if it's going to change if I start mixing it in with the foundation before I apply it. These are questions that are still open, but I have to say, my first impression, the first 2 days wearing the new double wear foundation, I am very relieved because it seems to be very similar. If anything, it might be slightly dewier upon first application, which I think is gonna be a little bit easier for some people to stomach because it's just a little bit more of a natural finish. But to be honest, I didn't see all that big of a difference. So that being said, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then you might also like this one here. And thank you to all of my patrons and channel members, including my Adagio angels, for making content like this possible. I hope we can all remember that even stumbling can be a form of moving forward. So let's stumble in style.